Hello and welcome to our video around cloud security demystified. My name is Mark Armstrong. I'm head of modern workplace at inTEC.
And I am Brad Merner. I'm the technical delivery manager in the South for our Sussex office.
And we're here to basically try and bring you to a place where security or IT security, specifically within the cloud, kind of makes sense. So the typical questions that we're asked by all of our clients really often boil down to how secure is the cloud and is it worth me kind of moving to it? So if we run through kind of these questions, and what we're going to hopefully do over the course of this video is answer them. So a lot of clients will look to the cloud and say, oh, I'm not too sure about that. You know, we've got an on-premise environment, it's really secure, people can't access stuff when they're not in the office, and that's the way I like it. So, you know, if I move to the cloud, surely I'm going to lose that control, and therefore, you know, my data is not going to be secure. It's a really valid question, but absolutely one that isn't the case anymore, I would say. And we'll kind of look through this video. We can demonstrate how that is the case. Equally, kind of same, you know, different side of the same coin. Someone's already in the cloud, but they don't necessarily know how secure their data is or their device is. I think it's as secure as you make it is probably the answer to that. If you just move all of your stuff to the cloud and don't really think and just assume it's secure, then it almost certainly isn't. But there are ways and means to absolutely secure it, and this video will kind of demonstrate that. Equally, if you're concerned about internal and external security threats, we can hopefully allay some of those fears with the features and functionality that we're going to show you today. It might be that actually, you know, you've got all the protections in place, you've got antivirus, spam protection, multi-factor authentication, etc., but you feel you're paying too much for it, and maybe you want to consolidate that into one package. Well, we've got just the package to do that. If you're interested in device management, again, it might be something you've looked at or you have through a third party. We can show you what device management can do, and the ways in which it will not just secure the devices in your estate now, but devices in the future, allow you to have kind of a unified policy for everything, but also far improve how you kind of roll out devices to users moving forward. Ultimately, it might just be that you're looking to upgrade to Business Premium and you kind of want to understand what the value proposition is in that. Well, this video will absolutely show you that. It might be that you've already got Business Premium, but you're not really sure if you're using everything about it. So again, we'll demonstrate what is available within the Business Premium package. And if there's elements of that you're not currently using, well, we can absolutely help you to get there. Or maybe you're just confused by cloud security and what it all means. Well, again, this video will look to address those steps. So if we look at cloud security, I think it's fair to say that in the rush to move to the cloud, security wasn't always considered. So back in kind of March 2020, a lot of businesses had to make a very quick decision as to how they got their staff access to their data. Some created VPNs into their existing networks. Others just decided to move files kind of wholesale into the cloud so that their staff could keep working. And even now, we're still seeing that nothing's really been remedied beyond that. So the security that should underlie any move to the cloud hasn't necessarily been considered or implemented. And as a result of that, and just the world in general, attacks are ever increasing. So an organization falls victim to a ransomware attack every 11 seconds. And a third of all cyber attacks are targeted at small businesses. And there's a good reason for that. You know, an enterprise business is a kind of a big ticket item for a hacker. And if you manage to get into one of those systems, then you know you could make a lot of money from it. But equally, they're way harder to get into than a small business. So as a result, what we tend to find is that there's lots more small businesses attacked, because the chance of success is that bit greater, because you know a small business is less likely to have a full-time IT staff, so less likely to have security professionals employed that are there to kind of secure their environment, so less likely to have just implemented these measures. So it's really important as a small business that you don't just think, oh, well, we're too small, we're not going to be affected by this. You absolutely will be. So as a result, it's really important that companies employ a range of tools to mitigate the risk of attack. And I think it's important to note that that's from both internal and external sources. Again, a lot of businesses will consider the fact that, yes, they might get hacked by someone in Russia or China or North Korea or wherever else, and put in kind of things in place to stop that. But they're far less vigilant around what potential staff could do to their systems. You know, what happens if a disgruntled member of staff decides, right, I'm going to delete all the files in the cloud? You know, do businesses have something to recover from that? Or what if a salesperson is leaving and decides, oh, well, it'd be great if I could take the sales database with me, or my list of contacts with me, or whatever else to take to my new business? Again, how do I stop that? So it's really important that we consider those things. And questions that you need to ask yourself as well with regards getting an idea of what your security profile looks like is, you know, at the moment, how do you protect against lost or stolen devices? Do you have a way to wipe devices if they get lost or stolen? How do you protect passwords? How do you make sure that the password policy is strong and robust? Do you do that at the moment? How do you ensure that confidential work and customer data is not accidentally leaked? What policies have you got in place to stop that? Do you have a process to secure your data when somebody leaves the business? So if you've already moved to the cloud, what have you put in place to make sure that somebody can't rip a load of data out of your cloud repository and put it onto their hard drive or onto a pen drive before they leave? And do you have a quick way to identify attacks and mitigate risk and liability? One of the most common things that we see with regards to hacks is that hacks aren't necessarily instantly identified. A clever hacker won't get into a system and immediately do something. A clever hacker will go into a system and then sit and watch, often for a period of months, to really understand what that business does and how those people within it communicate and who the important people are within there before launching a way more sophisticated attack, generally a phishing attack to try and extort money without the business even realize that anything's going on. So it's really important that we've got things in place that are going to identify that there's been a breach as soon as possible to try and reduce the impact of it as a result. So there are 1,000,001 mitigation steps that you can take, and we're going to kind of run through a list of the top ones that we feel you should be considering. So number one, and I think number one in this list for a reason, multi-factor authentication. If you're not aware of what that is, it's basically a secondary form of authentication alongside a password to give you access to a system. So instead of you just typing in a password, hitting return and you're in, you then forced to do some sort of extra step, which can be a phone call to your device. It could be a text with a PIN number that you then type in, or it could be a push notification. It's a really easy thing to implement. It's something that doesn't cause a great deal of kind of issues for the staff to start using it. Everyone's kind of familiar with multi-factor authentication in banking apps and everything else. But it's a great way to stop kind of 99% of attacks from happening, because it means that you're not relying on just people having really strong passwords or, you know, not falling for a phishing attack, both of which, you know, people don't always have strong passwords and people do fall for phishing attacks. It's a really good way to just stop those things dead.
So next up we have conditional access policies. So a bit like Mark touched on earlier, there's sort of two-pronged approach to sort of internal security. So we may have our internal procedures. So as a company, you may say staff aren't allowed to use personal devices. What we can use with conditional access, that is the technical control. So we can set a range of criteria or rules or requirements to meet or not to meet. And from those set of rules, we can then define what level of access the user has, what data they can access, what applications they can use. So it could be an example to just outright block all personal devices, or it could be that only members of finance can access this particular application. But where it's really powerful is when we start adding it with other technologies like the multi-factor authentication that Mark mentioned, where we're seeing a lot now from insurance and compliance requirements that you must have MFA enabled for all staff, rather than that being a manual action that a person internally has to take. These policies ensure that you're always compliant and making sure you're secure.
The next mitigation step, something that we've kind of touched upon already, is device management. So the ability to have a clear view of what your device estate looks like, both the corporate owned devices, so devices that you own as a business, but also devices that staff are using to access company data, what's commonly known as BYOB. These are both important things that you want to secure. So device management allows you to do that. For a corporate owned device, it allows you to have kind of complete control over everything that it does. For a BYOB device, it allows you to kind of ring fence that, and we'll look at this in way more detail. Brad's got a demo lined up that's kind of going to demonstrate what that means and how it's implemented.
So it won't be news to anyone that security patches, that's really critical to keeping your environment secure. So whether that be for your devices, your tablets, but again, what we can do with some of the other tools we mentioned is ensure compliance. So to make sure that your device is fully patched and updated. So not only we can use sort of the business premium and some of the products we're going to talk about today about ensuring the devices are updated, but what then we can also do is create a compliance policy around that. So if it's not up to date, you're not getting to the secure finance data. So again, just adding these layers to work together to make sure your environment is as secure as possible.
And another kind of classic one that everyone should have, to one extent or another, is anti-spam, malware protection, and virus protection. So if you don't have an antivirus running, that's, you need to get that on immediately. Ditto spam and malware protection. These are kind of classic things that every business should have, and I'd expect every business probably does have in one extent or another.
Next up, we have data loss prevention policies. So this is how we control how the data flows in and out of the business. So we may be using SharePoint or OneDrive already. What we can do is create, again, a set of rules or conditions. So prevent certain files from being shared, particular document types, and really just getting as granular as we need to from the organization, because with these security controls, we still need to maintain some business processes. It's a fine line of sort of dialing up the dial so that we're secure enough, but then still not preventing the users from doing their stuff. So with data loss prevention policies, that really allows us to do that. We can even take that one step further with the use of AI on products. It can actively monitor. So much to Mark's point earlier, a big threat in some organizations that's sort of overlooked is the internal resources themselves. So what we can do with data loss prevention and the sort of the business product premium product is to look at some of the AI. So how is a user behaving on a daily basis? If I just go every day and check my email and edit particular documents, but then all of a sudden I'm accessing all of the finance data or all the customer database and trying to export it, we as IT admins can create blocks, rules, alerts, and policies around that.
And kind of on top of that, what we can also do is kind of automatic document classification. So it's, again, another layer on top of a layer on top of a layer of security. But what automatic document classification will do, it kind of does what it says on the tin. It will classify documents based on kind of things that it sees, markers within the document that you've identified as a business. So, for example, I might say that any document that contains a credit card number, automatically it will be classified as highly confidential. And then I say to the system, right, well, if you classify a document as highly confidential, that means that that document has to be encrypted. It can't be printed. It can't be saved away from the cloud environment. It can't be shared with an external person, and it has to have a watermark that says highly confidential. And if I put that policy in place, every time a credit card number is put into a document, that document will automatically be classified as such and have all that security overlaid around it. So it's really useful for just securing stuff like data like that, but you can completely customize this. So if you've got a really confidential project and you want to make sure that the details of that project don't leave the business, or don't, you know, are only seen by a very select number of people, then you can create policies, classification policies like this to do exactly that.
And lastly, we have backing up your data. Again, this shouldn't be a great surprise or one that's relatively new to you guys, but what we need to ensure is that both for not just only on-premise, because it's very common that people sort of back up their data on their local devices, but also looking to protect your data in the cloud. Do you have another copy of your core company information stored in another location, so that if in the event you was unable to access it at source, or if there was a corruption or a malware or security attack, that you've got your data backed up securely?
I think it's a really important point, that a lot of people who've moved to the cloud don't back up their data because they think, well, you know, my data's not on my server anymore, it's on a server at Microsoft, therefore it's secure. And it is, until someone deletes it.
Yeah.
So, you know, all of these things that you put in place absolutely make your environment more secure, but nothing is foolproof. You know, think of it like a house. You know, you can put as many locks and cameras and alarms and whatnot on the house, but someone might still break in, and that's kind of the same kind of thing with IT security. There's still a risk. So backing up your data is your insurance policy, so that if the worst happens, you can recover from it, and recover from it easily. So it's super important. So now that we've kind of run through all those mitigation steps, I guess it's important to see, well, how can you put all those in place easily? And the easiest way to do that is through the Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. So a lot of companies utilize Microsoft for their kind of apps, their line of business apps, so Word, Excel, Outlook, etc. And therefore on the business standard license, which gives you all those apps alongside SharePoint and OneDrive and email and whatnot. Microsoft bought out Business Premium a couple of years ago, with the view being that companies didn't have enough security within their client environment, or were using lots of different vendors to provide them with those security elements. So they'd have Microsoft Business Standard for their apps, and then their files and whatnot, but then they'd use someone else for antivirus, someone else for spam protection, someone else for device management. And that's expensive from a business perspective, because you've got all these extra licenses, but it's also difficult to manage, because changing the policy in one doesn't change everything else and doesn't necessarily apply to everyone in the business. It's all not under kind of one umbrella. So with the Business Premium license, you essentially get everything that you get from Business Standard, but you then get a whole range of security features that will cover everything that we just talked about outside of backup, within those kind of mitigation steps. So you get access to Intune, which is device management, and something that we'll demonstrate for you in just a second. You get access to information protection policies, so ways in which you can kind of ring fence your data and stop it coming out of your environment, being sent to third parties or downloaded onto a USB drive or whatever it might be. You get upgraded to Azure AD Premium P1, which gives you a lot of these functionalities around advanced multi-factor authentication and conditional access policies. If you want to go into a fully hosted desktop environment, then you get access to Azure Virtual Desktop to do that, so that you can work within a virtual desktop environment instead. And you get access to Microsoft Defender, which is a whole range of security features, including antivirus and spam protection. So it's a really good package, and for a price difference as of today of £7.80 per month between Business Standard and Business Premium, it represents really good value, because you're getting at least £20 of additional value per user per month within that. So if you were buying these kind of things separately, you're looking at £20–30 per user per month to be able to do that, as opposed to a £7.80 increase for Microsoft, with the other added benefit that it's all under this kind of one wrapper, so way easier to control. So if we look at the advanced capabilities in a little bit more detail, it's kind of 5 key areas that this is going to give you. It's going to allow you to secure your devices. So it's going to allow you to control which devices and users can access business information through Intune. So you can apply security policies to keep data protected on any device. You can keep company data within approved apps on mobile devices. We'll show you what that looks like. And you can remove business data from lost or stolen devices with Intune Selective Wipe. So if a device gets lost remotely with a click, you can lock it or you can completely clean it down. If it's a BYOB device and someone leaves, you can wipe it and just remove corporate data. So that person's not going to lose their pictures or any of their personal information, but they will instantly lose access to anything owned by the business. It will allow you to protect business data. So it will allow you to encrypt sensitive emails. It will allow you to block the sharing of sensitive information like credit card numbers. It will allow you to restrict copying and saving of business information outside of your environment. And it will enable unlimited cloud archiving. It will allow you to defend against cyber threats. So with Defender for Office 365, which comes as part of Business Premium, you're able to guard against unsafe attachments, suspicious links, phishing, and ransomware with safe links. You can detect malware with safe attachments. You can enable anti-phishing policies, and you can also enable advanced multi-factor authentication. It will also allow you to secure remote access and protect identity. So it will allow you to enable employees to securely access business apps wherever they work, on whatever device they work on. It will allow you to help protect against lost or stolen passwords with this advanced multi-factor authentication, on top of conditional access policies, which will help provide the right access to the right people while keeping hackers at bay. And finally, it will give you access to Microsoft Defender for Business, which is Microsoft's enterprise-grade antivirus endpoint protection. So a lot of capabilities.
Indeed. So what we want to do now is just take you over an overview of one of those products we've mentioned a few times today, the Intune product, and how we can start implementing some of those controls to protect your organization. So on screen here, we've got some of the Microsoft apps on the left-hand side that we've talked about today. So you're probably already using Exchange and email in Microsoft 365. Potentially you're storing some of your files in SharePoint and OneDrive. Now, with these particular applications or services, you're usually using sort of the Microsoft Office suite or the Microsoft Office apps to access the data, and that could be across any range of devices. So your sort of normal clients, laptops, PCs, Windows, Mac, but also as hybrid working has become more and more of a thing, and people are working remotely, tablets and devices are becoming more and more popular to be used on a daily basis, particularly sometimes by your sort of frontline workers. So that's all supported too. Then sort of on the right hand side of the screen, we've got some line of business applications. So typically now more likely than not cloud host applications. So I've just got some examples there of Salesforce, a popular CRM, and Adobe, but this could be any of your industry standard applications that are specific to your sector. And primarily they're accessed from browsers. So what we then do with the Intune product and sort of the tools we mentioned today is we create a ring-fenced area. So what we can do is protect those applications, those systems, those data, starting particularly with the user. So what we can do is not only with the 365 products, we can extend those protections into your other business applications that have been integrated properly. So if I set a set of controls, so if I say must be on a work laptop, must have MFA, that can not only just extend to your email, but we can also have those controls enforced on your other applications like your CRM, Salesforce, etc. So a really super powerful tool. So how do we go about doing that? So we talked earlier about conditional access. So us as IT administrators, we'd come in here and you can see we can make a whole host and range of policies depending on what the department or company requirements are. So one we talked about earlier was enabling multi-factor authentication for all staff, but it could be blocking all devices. It could be from a particular location. So it doesn't have to just be, as we touched on earlier, but they're getting that balance around. We don't want it to be too obstructive, but we want to keep the environment secure. So a real often one that we work with our clients is perhaps you have a secure office location, you know everybody that's working there, so we could whitelist that location so that every day from the office you're not having to have this prompt. But if I was a malicious attacker and I was located in another country or region or just up the road, I would get a prompt for MFA authentication. So as I said, one of the sort of most common approaches is more and more we're seeing companies provide their own devices for the staff and just outright block the connection if it's not from that. So that would look a little something like this. So even if I have met all of the requirements, I've got my username, I've got the password, and I've even got MFA, but I'm using my own laptop as an organization, you can choose to completely block the session. So that would look a little something like this. So what would MFA look like for those of you that's not using it? So just a quick demonstration on that. So I've got a colleague here, Nesta. So he's going to go to the normal Office landing page, just select his username there. He's going to then prompt it to just type in his normal password. So he'll just fill in his password there. And this is the point where you then have the MFA authentication come through. So it doesn't, we recommend the Microsoft Authenticator app. It makes it nice and easy. As Mark mentioned earlier, it should be something you're fairly familiar with, sort of using your banking applications, but it could also be a text message or a phone number as alternative methods. So once we've then authenticated this additional layer, what we'll then do is just get greeted with our data and applications as required. So that's just a quick overview of how the multi-factor authentication would work for a member of your team if you're not using it already. So now let's just dive into a little bit more detail about the device management and what we also call application management. So there's two approaches here, and we're using again a mobile device. Just take an iPhone as an example. On the left-hand side, we've got a device management approach. So this would be where the device is supplied by the company to the staff. We have complete control over the device, so we can choose what applications are installed, what security settings are there, what PIN, whether you need to have biometrics. We can completely reset the device to factory settings if it's lost or stolen, which is a brilliant feature. And on the right hand side, we've got more of a personal device. So more and more since sort of the COVID era, people are using their own devices to access particularly Outlook and Teams and those sort of applications on their personal mobile. So how do we protect that data and those applications? So as earlier in my sort of diagram, we can create a ring-fenced area. So the list of approved apps that we define, in this case, sort of like Outlook and Teams, we can for personal devices have them protected. So the first time they launch the application, they'll be advised that this application is managed by the organization and it's protecting all of the data within. Anything that's personal related, so my own social media apps, my photos, any data locally stored is kept completely separate, and sort of the two don't mix. So your staff can have peace of mind that you're not spying on them, and the data is also secure. So I just want to give you a quick overview of how we've implemented that for so a colleague's got a personal iPhone and they're just going to be working with some of the company apps. So just got Nesta's got his iPhone here. He's just going to launch the Outlook application and he's just going to browse an email from Megan. Within the email, it's got a Word attachment, so he's just going to open that. And browsing through the documentation, he's seen some text that he wants to copy out to another area of the device. So he just selected the secure text. Going to open the Notes application. So the Notes application is an app that's locally stored, so the data's on the iPhone. So ideally, we don't want the data here. So he's just going to paste the information, and actually, he's greeted with a message that is advising this can't be processed. So a great example how not only just the app, but also the data are protecting, so it can't leak outside of your organization. If, however, we hop back into the Outlook application and he wants to share that information with a colleague in the approved Outlook Microsoft app, you're just going to compose a new email and you can paste it straight away. So just showing you that clear delimiter of how it can work with personal devices, not just company owned. So it was a quick overview of the Intune product. So some of the key features we talked about, we can wipe the device if it's lost and stolen. That's really good for compliance reasons. We can protect any range of operating system or device type, and we can get really granular with the controls we require, whether that be if they must have to have a PIN on the device to open up the data, what particular updates required, any apps we want to install. The possibilities are sort of endless for really what we want to do with controlling the devices. So again, two different approaches, company owned or personal, and we can be flexible with whatever the organization requirements are. Next product I just wanted to have a quick talk about was the autopilot features that's included within Business Premium. So what does it do? It essentially is a cloud hosted service that's assists you in deploying Windows 10 and 11 devices. So this allows your organization to scale this very effectively. So it doesn't matter if you want to set up 10 devices or 100 devices. What we can do is we create a predefined sort of template or structure or instructions. It could be for different departments. So it could be for your finance team or your sales team. They could have different requirements. And what this system enables you to do is confidently just ship a brand new device to a member of your team. So they could be at home. They don't need to be connected to a server or in the office, and get them up and running in a matter of minutes. And you can have the sort of security of ensuring that they've got the right patches, their applications, and it's going to be hassle-free for them. So I'll give you a quick demonstration on how that works. Also, a thing to add is we can sort of personalize the look and feel so that every member of your team is getting a consistent experience. So everyone's working in the same manner. So in this scenario, we've shipped a colleague, Megan, a new laptop. So she gets out of the box what we call the UBI experience. So you're just going to have to go through picking the sort of language and region settings, sort of the boring stuff. So once you pick your language and region, you just need to get an internet connection for this to work. So you're just going to join your home Wi-Fi in this instance. Just pop in the Wi-Fi security key. Just a quick message to note that if you was using a 4G or a 5G connection, the laptop or device could obviously download a large amount of data if it's doing updates or installations. So just be wary of that. It's now just going to check for updates. So is it on the latest version of Windows? So again, we can ensure from day one the device is secure. So just running through that process. So now what's happened is the device is sort of checking with Microsoft, and it's determined from some settings we created earlier that it's a company-owned device. So it's automatically detected our organization. So now our user Megan can just pop in her normal 365 credentials as she would to access Teams or email. She's then just going to pop in her password. Now at this point, the device is going back to Azure Active Directory. It's enrolling in Microsoft Endpoint, so it's getting all of those Defender and security products we talked about. So again, just reinforcing that from day zero, the device is going to be secure in the way you want it. Now that's done that process, so it's determined what apps Megan should have, how her device should be secured, how it should look. It's just going to run through those steps, so we're just going to have to wait a minute whilst those complete. And the system's going to restart just to finalize some settings. I'm sure you may have been seeing this lovely menu a few times before. It's just finalizing our settings. And we agree with the desktop. So as you can see from the start menu here, we've got already the Office applications already pre-installed. In this instance, I've published a remote desktop application to use some of the cloud tools. And she immediately has access to her company data. So there's no need to do additional sign-ins for Outlook or OneDrive. All of that's taken care for. So in a matter of minutes, she can just pick up right where she left off or just get working right away. So that's a quick overview of Autopilot. Now we just wanted to run through with you some typical questions we were asked around these products.
Yeah, so we started with these questions. So I thought it would be useful to kind of finish with them as well, just to make sure that we've answered them. So, want to move your organization to the cloud but worried about security? Well, hopefully we've just kind of been able to demonstrate that there's nothing to worry about with these tools like Intune and like all of the virus protection and multi-factor authentication and conditional access and whatnot. You can be confident that your data is as secure as it can be on anything. I think the key worry that people have when they're looking to move to the cloud is, you know, in the old days, I knew that my staff could only access my data from a computer that I owned in an office, and that was it. And, you know, I knew that I turned the USB ports off and whatnot, so there was no way that they could kind of get that data out. But now I'm letting them go. If I let them go into the cloud, they could now be, you know, on a laptop in a hotel in a different country and still accessing my data. And what's to stop that leaking? Well, what we've just demonstrated is what stops that leaking. So what you've done is you've increased the entire business's access to data so they can work on anything from anywhere on any device with no friction, but in a secure manner. So from our perspective, it's kind of there's only upside to making this move into the cloud. There's no negatives to it, and security should absolutely not be a concern. When it's implemented properly, you're in a good place. Equally, therefore, if you're already in the cloud and you don't know how secure your data and devices really are, well, hopefully this is giving you some insight into what that looks like. So if you've got Business Premium, if you've implemented these steps that we've talked about, then you can feel pretty safe in the knowledge that you're in a good place. Equally, if you're in the cloud and everything we've just talked about is kind of new information for you, then it's time to kind of pick up a phone and get this sorted, because at the moment there would absolutely be a risk for you, because you've got kind of all the benefits of everywhere access, but so does anyone that can potentially hack your systems. And if you haven't got these things in place, then that's only one phishing attack or one password as a password away from potential disaster. If you're concerned about internal and external security threats, and again, hopefully this has allayed some fears as to how much we can secure on this. And you know, there's way more that can be done within the kind of the Intune policies that you create. So Brad kind of touched upon this with the autopilot demo. You can create different profiles, what we call configuration profiles for different users. So management might have a different profile to front of line staff. And all these different policies can be put in place to reduce these threats. So you might say for a manager, they can access any website they want, and they have access to this list of 20 apps. For a front of line staff, you might say, well, that person only has access to these 2 applications and they can only go on these 3 websites if it's a corporate device. You've got full control over that, as well as this ability, you know, you can't copy and paste or out of a corporate environment. You can't save stuff down outside of a corporate environment. These are all things that you can put in place at a really granular level, depending on the person, and all of it will help mitigate against both internal and external threats. If you're paying for antivirus and spam protection and multi-factor authentication elsewhere and want to consolidate, well, absolutely, Business Premium is the way to go on that. I'm not aware of any other way to kind of consolidate those all into one place. If you're in the Microsoft world already, it makes even more sense to just pay that little bit extra to Microsoft and have everything covered under one roof, than using kind of several different vendors to do different things. If you're interested in secure device management, then hopefully this has piqued your interest that bit more. I think it's great to be able to secure devices. I think it's great to be able to give users the flexibility to kind of work on what they want, but within the strict guidelines of what the business will allow. So, you know, if someone wants to access email on their personal device, sure, go ahead, you absolutely can do. But, you know, we've put policies in place, and that policy is that your phone has got to be up to date so that it's secure, and it's got to have a PIN on it. And if you don't want to do those things, then you can't access the corporate data, but that's your choice to make as an employee. So we're absolutely securing the environment, but making it as seamless as possible for the end user. So hopefully this has just kind of piqued your interest in that. I think also autopilot, for any corporations that take that on board, is an absolute game changer when it comes to sending device out to staff, especially if you're a business of, you know, with a fairly sizable user base. That is a huge amount of time saved. You know, on average, it takes what, 2 hours to set up a laptop, Brad, you reckon?
Yeah, saves 2 hours. And even that, just the back and forth, sometimes maybe if you're internal to IT team or your provider, where just getting things quite right, you can confidently set and forget, you know what's going to happen when you ship the device. So, and equally just empowering your users to get on faster, so you're not worried about getting it to them and what state it's going to be in. They can literally just sign in and they've got no additional steps, as you saw it in the demo.
And it's quicker. It's not just like you're saving your IT staff time. It comes straight from the distributor to the person. It doesn't have to go to IT and spend a couple of days sat in a room there and then get shipped out again to the person, or the person has to come into the office. It's just direct and it's easy. So if you're looking to upgrade to Business Premium, hopefully this has kind of helped make that decision for you, in the sense that it's going to give you access to a whole load more stuff. That stuff absolutely has to be configured, and as a business, we will absolutely help you to do that and work alongside you to put the policies in place, custom to you, that will work for your business. But hopefully this has helped kind of make that decision and solidify things. Equally, if you're already using Business Premium, then if there's anything in here that you've seen that you think, well, I don't have that, or I'm not aware of that, then let us know, and we can obviously take a look at that for you. And if it's not there, we can implement it. Equally, if you're just confused by cloud security, then hopefully this video has gone a little ways towards kind of demystifying all of that. So with that, we're kind of at an end. So this slide is exactly what it says. We're here to help. So if you want to get in touch, you can email me directly. There's my personal email address and phone number. I'm not sure if we'll regret publishing that on wherever this video ends going out, but so be it. As well as our website. So you take a look at that, and please don't hesitate to get in touch if you want to have a chat around how inTEC and myself and Brad can help you secure your environment and make the most of your business premium license, or get you onto business premium, get you all this functionality. And with that, I'd just like to say thanks for watching this video.
Thanks for your time.